When my oldest son was 6 years old, I took him into the wilderness for the first time. We went to the South Colony drainage of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Colorado. He was 6 years old, I think, and we got to the trailhead. I got his pack out. It was a Snoop Dogg pack, a book bag, and put in it his extra change of clothes and some toilet paper and salt and pepper, because when the Chambers go backpacking, everybody carries their own weight. Then we started on the Rainbow Trail and headed north across the base of Humboldt Mountain, and he was lagging behind, and so I decided that the best thing for me to do, rather than yelling at him all the time to keep up, was to grab a stick and have him hang on to one end and I hang on to the other, and we came up with a song that we could sing together that would help us. And so the only song that he and I both knew was Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's just praise the Lord. And we sang that over and over and over again. And before we knew it, we were at the North Colony drainage and Lone Tree Meadow, where my family had been backpacking when I was a little boy. I set up our tent, we ate our supper, and then I said, you're going to need to go to the bathroom before you go to bed. And so we found a sapling about 15 yards away from our camp, and I said, every time you need to pee, son, I want you to pee on this little sapling. And he started calling it his pee stick. And so then I put him in bed, and when he was in bed, I started to get in bed, and then I remembered I needed to go to the bathroom, so I went out to the pee stick, and I remember leaving a light on inside the tent so if he woke up and he wouldn't be disoriented. So I was out at the pee stick, and I could see the Milky Way stretching across the Colorado sky, and just feeling so good about where we were. And then I remembered the first time I went into the wilderness with my dad. I was about the same age, and we were living in Texas while my dad was going to college, and we had camped on the banks of a large lake. I don't know which lake it was. Maybe it was Brownwood Lake. And whoever we were camping with, and my dad had set out trot lines, and he needed to go check them, and the best time to check them is at night. And so we didn't have a boat or a canoe, so as I remember it, we lashed some inner tubes, some car inner tubes together with some poles and saplings, and he took me with him. And so with paddles or long poles, we pushed off from shore, and off we went to check our trot lines. And it seemed like for hours, but I'm sure it was just minutes. We came across a willow that had been down, and there was a jug of some kind of plastic jug that was bobbing up and down, and they went over to check it, and sure enough, up from that black water came this gray-green catfish, and we checked another one and checked another one, and every time they got one, they would put it on a nylon string and hand it to me. And my dad said, now be careful, son, don't let that catfish get up against that inner tube, because the spines on that catfish will poke a hole in your tube, and your tube will go flat. And so I was holding out as far as I could and feeling the whole weight of the world, because it seemed to me like everybody's life was in my hands. And about that time, a catfish flopped, and it flopped over on the inner tube, and then you could hear the tss as it started to leak. And I knew we were going to die. I was too young to die, but I just knew we were going to die. My dad put his arm around me and said, oh, you're going to be okay, son. That's why we have your tube lashed with ours. And he put his big toe on that leak and then rowed us back to camp. About that time, I heard from inside the tent, Dad! I said, I'm out here at the pea stick, son. He said, you've been out there long enough, I think it's going to start growing again. And then he just started giggling. I went back in the tent, crawled in my sleeping bag, put my arm around my son. And I remember thinking, it's good to be in the wilderness for the first time with your father. It's better to be in the wilderness for the first time with your son.